Now, the federal government has maintained that the recently signed Samoa agreement is strictly for the economic development of the country, contrary to widespread claims that it contains provisions for same-sex marriage. Speaking in defense of the agreement, the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Atiku Bagudu, said there is nowhere in the document where same-sex marriage is mentioned. According to the minister's spokesperson, Bolaji Adebiyi, what Bagudu signed was about $150 billion trade component. Earlier on Thursday, Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, clarified that the federal government ensured that the agreement did not contravene the 1999 Constitution as amended and other extant laws. He said there is an existing law in Nigeria that criminalizes same-sex relationship. We're now being joined by lawyer and chairman, Human and Constitutional Rights Committee of African Bar Association, that's Sonny Ekwowusi, to discuss the controversy over Nigeria signing the Samoa Agreement and what the nation stands to gain or lose from it. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
We're very glad to have you as well.
Yes.
In spite of the clarifications, we're still seeing the reactions for those that might not be too thrilled with this signing. So how does this align with Nigeria's constitutional principles and human rights commitments?
Well, it completely violates Nigerian Chapter 2 of the Nigerian Constitution and also contradicts Chapter 4, 1838 of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, which has been incorporated as part of Nigerian law. The issue of Samoa Agreement is a very painful one because I was involved in the negotiation for this, whether Nigeria will sign or not. And prior to 15th of November 2023, when some countries signed the Samoa Agreement, Nigeria had made its position known that she was not going to sign because of the provisions. Articles 2.5 of the agreement, Articles 29.5 of the agreement, Articles 62.2 of the agreement, and then you have Article 97, Article 88. All these articles of the agreement, that made Nigeria to say that she was not going to sign. They were not surprised that on the 28th of June 2024, that a diplomat, in Brussels, signed on behalf of Nigeria. When we had a meeting with members of National Assembly on Wednesday, I was in that meeting, members of National Assembly, including the chairman of committee who are involved with treaties and protocols and all that, National Assembly, said that they were not consulted. So who was consulted in the whole thing? I don't even know the local standard of the Minister for Budget and Planning with this treaty. How come that the Minister for Budget and Planning is not speaking on behalf of National Assembly about this treaty? They were not consulted, so who was consulted? And the articles, the offensive articles, were not deleted. We told them during the negotiation that if you want Nigeria to sign, you have to expunge all those articles of the agreement, and they said no. And the agreement has no interpretation status. You know what interpretation section means? That when you have an agreement, below you have interpretation. This is this. It has no that. The agreement has no provision for reservation, which means what we have just signed is like a death warrant. Don't forget that the EU is the one that's imposing this agreement on African countries. And first, the EU is obsessed with LGBT, abortion, transgender, and all that. And we are saying, look, we are different people. You stay in your country and you do that. You don't stay in your country and be telling us how to run our country and all that. To imbibe transgender, to imbibe abortion, to imbibe even corruption, comprehensive sexuality education, which teaches children how to have so-called safe sex, how to use contraceptives and have safe sex without the consent of their parents. We are saying that this is very, very bad. And this can undo Nigeria because it's not only political problems or insecurity that's a problem. These are cultural, moral, and religious issues. When we had a meeting with the Muslims on Wednesday in Abuja, they are very, very, very angry. And they said, look, this is unacceptable. It cannot be that Nigeria, that is supposed to be a big brother in Africa, has signed this. Other African countries have not signed. Namibia has not signed. 34 other African, Pacific, and Caribbean countries have not signed. So why should Nigeria sign? So, and the surprising thing is that, look, that this minister, this diplomat, I don't want to mention his name, signed this without consulting members of National Assembly. And then I said, look, we are not even aware, about what is happening. So we are saying that Nigeria must unsign this agreement because it is detrimental to Nigerian interests. It's not to Nigerian interests. I mean, that this agreement came from the Cotonou Agreement. This is more or less Cotonou Agreement that has provisions for real economic development of a country. That is a perfect agreement. But 2000, it was amended to include all these European Union obnoxious provisions, LGBT, safe-sex, compulsory sexuality education, transgender. And then we are saying, no. Why didn't you leave the Cotonou Agreement the way it was? You have now amended it and went to Samoa to sign, and you have all these African countries making them parties, and which means that, and the most annoying aspect of it is that this Samoa Agreement, even without Nigeria domestication, that, as a lawyer, I know that when Nigeria operate the dual system, that is when treaties are signed, they are domesticated by virtue of Section 12 of the Constitution. But the way this agreement is crafted in such a way that once an African country signs, it becomes binding. EU will send their envoy here, and they will continue to, to ask, and they continue to get Nigeria to start providing. So what we are saying is that, look, there's an error in the whole thing, okay? Because the minister we have heard has come up to explain that, well, it's in Nigerian interest. How? How is Nigerian interest? First of all, Nigeria, you don't carry the people along. We are not consulted. We, the people of Nigeria, represented by senators and honorable members of the House of Assembly, were not consulted. So who was consulted? Somebody just went and put pen to paper, and then did not consult, probably over a cup of tea or coffee, without even understanding what he's signing. This is terrible.
Right. If I may comment, there's like two questions in one. I think to a large extent you've already tackled it, but how reassuring is Atiku Bagudu's comment on the LGBT claims? He was vehement on that, but from your observations, how would you interpret the legal framework for cooperation between the OCPS and, of course, the EU on sustainable development and Nigeria's signing of that agreement? What does it entail from that legal document for us to participate in it? You've already interpreted Nigeria's constitution on that, but from their perspective, what are we looking at here?
From their perspective, what we are saying is that it means that the EU will not determine. It's like a Trojan horse. The agreement is not, it's an open-ended. It's like you are giving somebody an open check. Now, EU is going to continue to make decisions and we bind all these countries outside the agreement.
If I'm not comfortable with certain provisions of that legal framework, can I appeal that?
Expunge it. We told them to expunge it, and they said no, because what they are going for is not the trade you're talking about, economic. Why do you have to put all these provisions in economic agreement? We say expunge them, and we go on with you. We don't have any problem with you. Nobody has a hatred with EU. But I say, look, expunge 2.5. Expunge 62.2, expunge 29.5, all these are very disagreeable on ground of our moral and religion. Africa will have our cultural heritage, whether you like it or not. That's where we differ from other people,